Jets lose again. That is the headline coming off of Week 10 for the New York Jets. We talked about this potentially being a game that the Jets could possibly go on a little mini winning streak here instead, a losing streak for the New York Jets. All right, everybody, jump in the comments section. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we'll get into all of it. Let's roll.
Zoinks! And it is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field Gosh Guard Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor Gashdarn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been on.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Painful, excruciating. You don't get used to this feeling. Hey, everybody, Paul Esden Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to our postgame show, about 2 hours live after every game. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We're brought to you by Cam631 Laser Custom Engraving, which, by the way, also sponsors the live stream as well. If you guys would like to jump in and we'll take a few video calls, so feel free to use that. That is the pinned comment on our YouTube channel. So if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, you have to go over to our YouTube channel to click that link. If you'd like to vent, react to the Jets' 16-12 loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. And the worst part is there was such a tease. The Jets get off to this quick not necessarily 9-0 lead, but 9 points on the board. Coulda, shoulda, woulda had a touchdown. First off, I just want to say I hope CJ Uzomah was locked out of the locker room. I hope he didn't get in. I don't want him on the team. Bench him, cut him. Terrible. Breece Hall touchdown. Whoa. Not so fast. Zach Wilson's pinky toe touches the line. Not a touchdown. This close. The Jets haven't scored a touchdown since the Giants game, and that was a million broken tackle Breece Hall performance. 30-plus drives without a touchdown for this New York Jets offense. In an NFL where offense is king, the rules are built around the offense. Everything is supposed to be moving and grooving. The Jets still can't get it done. Hell, they have this game today. This is the worst thing about the Jets is that you're teased. It's not just bad. Like there's flirtations with pops of ooh, which intrigue you, right? Zach Wilson throws the back-breaking interception. The Jets are driving. We're starting to get a sense in the crowd. I wasn't there, but you're starting to get a sense watching the game like, wow, Zach Wilson has a chance to establish, to set a tone, to define something here in this pivotal moment in the season as the Jets prior to this game are 4-4. Zach Wilson can punch in a touchdown, win the game last second. Aaron Rodgers on the sideline. You could get to 5-4 and then head into this pivotal stretch where you have these divisional opponents in back-to-back weeks. The Buffalo Bills, who've already beaten once. Then you have the Miami Dolphins, a Black Friday game at home right after Thanksgiving. Like everything lined up for the Jets. But, of course, they couldn't punch in a touchdown. They went into Raiders territory 5 times. 4 of them were field goals. The other one was the back-breaking Zach Wilson interception. Brutal. At the end, you get more flirtation. A Zach Wilson last-second heave escapes, gives his players the chance at least. It's not like the Giants game, he gets sacked on the 4th down. They ultimately obviously came back in that one, but, where all hope's lost, he's able to shake free of Max Crosby and chuck it to the end zone where they have a chance. Tyler Conklin and Garrett Wilson have an exchange with the ball. A last-second heave. They have a chance. So, CJ Uzomah, I never want to see you again. Jeremy Ruckert should be playing over him. Tyler Conklin should be playing over him. I don't want to see CJ Uzomah. He, on a dumbass hold that was irrelevant to the play where Breece Hall scores a touchdown, we turn one of those threes into a 7. That's plus 4 points. The Jets lost by 4 points. Then at the end, maybe they're kicking a field goal to win, or at the very least, you're going overtime. If just one of those drives goes from 3 points to 7, which they had twice, they quote unquote scored with Zach Wilson getting loose, looked very good on the ground today with the wheels. We've been begging for Zach Wilson to take advantage of the green grass in front of him. He certainly did that in this game. He was the leading rusher for the Jets. He was the leading rusher for the Jets today. He has old Zachy. Old Zach Attack had 4 carries for 54 yards, the longest of which was a 20-yarder. He took advantage of the green grass that was in front of him. But his pinky toe steps out, no touchdown. Next play, Breece Hall. Touchdown, no wait, penalty, back, field goal attempt. And the penalties as a whole are a problem. And Robert Saleh's, when he's asked about this, man, how do you fix this? He paused for 5 seconds, Robert Saleh, after the game. He's asked by Antoine Staley of the New York Daily News, how do you solve the penalty issue, basically, was the question. And like I said, Robert Saleh paused for 5 seconds and then said, just keep trying, buddy, basically is what he said. Here are the penalties over the last 6 games for the New York Jets. This is not a prisoner of the moment. This is not a today issue. This is a long-standing issue. We're heading into Week 11. That's the next game for the Jets against the Buffalo Bills. But here are the penalties. 8 penalties for 83 yards, 8 penalties for 40 yards, 9 penalties for 85, 9 penalties for 68, 9 penalties for 71, and 7 penalties for 42 yards. All in all, over the last 6 games, I did this math. The Jets had 50 penalties for 389 yards. 50 penalties for 389 yards over the last 6 games. So when Saleh keeps coming up to the podium and giving us the same spiel, self-inflicted wounds, we got to look at the tape, we got to look at that. Coach, either you and your staff are not doing a good enough job behind the scenes, cracking the whip on the players. This shit is unacceptable. We're not doing this. Or the players are ignoring you, or God knows what. Prior to the Chiefs game, the Jets didn't have any of these penalty issues in New England and beyond the first 3 weeks of the season. But since that point, 50 penalties for 389 yards, and then you've had at least 7 in every one of those games, and at most 9. So you've pocketed between 7 and 9 penalties, and they just come at the worst possible times. And some of them were trash. First off, Michael Carter engaging when an offensive lineman is engaged. I did not think Mekhi Becton was engaged with the Raider while Michael Carter went low, but a dumbass, no relevance to the play penalty, that gets called back. Alan Lazard's hold on Max Crosby was irrelevant. They were scoring on that play anyway with Breece Hall. Brutal penalty that's called back. And they've had him all season, as I've told you with that track record. Just disgusting. Disgusting. That's how I feel about this. We honestly and realistically thought the Chargers game was winnable, and it was. The Raiders game was winnable, and it was. And now the Jets are at 4-5. In the hierarchy, okay, there's 32 teams in the NFL. They're split into 16 in each conference. The Jets right now, with that loss, are 13 out of 16 teams in the AFC. That's where the Jets stand. If they would have won, they would have been 8th. There are 7 teams that make the playoffs. The Jets would have been right outside the door of the playoffs with a win today against the Raiders. And now here's this. So the Jets sit at 13 right now. The 2 teams that are directly ahead of them, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers, have both beaten the Jets head-to-head, which, by the way, is the first tiebreaker in tie-breaking playoff scenarios. It's head-to-head, and then it goes to conference. And the Jets lost to the Raiders, so they would lose that head-to-head. They lost to the Chargers. They would lose that head-to-head. I'm not sure how many people are thinking playoffs here at 1:30 in the morning, but it feels worth noting the level of this loss and what it means for the team. And I'm going to be honest, I'm just so pissed. I'm so friggin' pissed. This may be the most pissed I've ever been after a game in my life. I don't know if that's exactly true. Those AFC Championship losses I'll never forget. But I'm just so pissed because the Jets defense gave up one touchdown, one, to Aiden O'Connell, who threw it to Michael Mayer, the former Notre Dame tight end who mossed Jordan Whitehead. One touchdown they gave up, and it was an insurmountable lead for the Jets. Think about that for a second. The Raiders scored one touchdown in 60 minutes, which is terrible, by the way, and that was enough. Mix in a couple of field goals, that was enough to beat the Jets. That was enough to beat the Jets. That, to me, is the hardest part of this equation, that the Jets have not scored a touchdown since the Giants game. The Jets cannot score a touchdown consistently, and they just find ways to just blow it, whether it's drops. Garrett Wilson had a couple of drops today. Zach Wilson threw him a moneymaker rainbow throw right inside the 5-yard line. Drop ski, Garrett Wilson. He had another one, a beautiful slant. Zach Wilson delivered it perfectly right in the midst. A drop by Garrett Wilson. And I hate to beat up on a guy like Garrett Wilson, who's obviously a straw that stirs the drink for this team. He got banged up a couple of times in this game, and he fought through. But I think it's important to be fair and criticize the people that are worth being criticized, that made mistakes. C.J. Uzomah's penalties are one that we've highlighted. Garrett Wilson's drops, painful. Zach Wilson said it after the game. It's like everyone else decides to take a different turn in terms of shooting themselves in the foot. Wow. Positive, Dalvin Cook. Hey, let Dalvin cook. Dalvin Cook some pops. 4 carries, 26 yards, 6.5 a clip. He looked fantastic. The best Dalvin Cook has looked all year. He looked fresh. And this is why so many people said just attach, a bomb to Dalvin Cook and move on from him. Just like, he's a cancer. Get him off the team. This is why you keep a guy like that on the team. Carl Lawson's another one, although he didn't really make an impact tonight. Will McDonald has an ankle injury in practice. Carl Lawson ends up stepping up for him. Again, I didn't really notice Carl that much tonight. We'll see on some of the deeper level analytics. Oh, man, there's so much good in this game. The third down conversion rate was the best rate the Jets have had all season. They were moving and grooving. I still hated the Nathaniel Hackett play calls, even on those drives that worked. Run, pass, so predictable. And fortunately, the Jets converted on those third downs, on those obvious passing down situations. So he doesn't catch the flack in those moments because it worked. But the predictable play calling. And then in the middle of the game, inexplicably, we talk about this in football, whether you're a player, coach, or anything in that realm. There are two ways that you can attack a football game. You could play not to win, or you could play to win, or you could play not to lose. Those are your two choices. And playing to win in layman's terms is an aggressiveness mindset. You are trying to take it. You're trying to go grab it. When you play not to lose, it's normally if you get a lead or you're just complacent, playing it safe. You're just saying, hey, let's just do some things so we don't blow it here. Like that's a mindset. In the middle of the game, inexplicably, Nathaniel Hackett decides, I don't know if it's subconsciously or what, let's rein it in and continue to do predictable play calls. And they held Zach back. You could notice with Zach at the very beginning of the game, whether or not he's Kansas City Chiefs, let's throw it around a little, or he's like off. You could tell that pretty quickly with Zach. And tonight it seemed like he was on. And there were some advantages with that early in the game. And then Nathaniel Hackett flipped it and said, nah, let's just play it cool. And that lack of aggressiveness by the Jets allowed the Raiders to surge back into the game. The Jets should have been up a touchdown or two. But ultimately at the half, they're only up a 3-piece combo. They're only up 3, 9-6 over the Las Vegas Raiders because of Nathaniel Hackett's questionable play calling. That, to me, is frustrating because now the Jets are going to continue to trot out the same thing. They've got a pivotal game coming up next Sunday, Buffalo Bills. It's going to be in the big national window at 4:25. And because Zach Wilson looked good, you're not going to change a quarterback. Nathaniel Hackett, you just can't change because of the Aaron Rodgers connection. And again, we'll have maybe a bigger video on this later, but Aaron Rodgers confirms to Melissa Stark of the Sunday Night Football broadcast that he has a plan to return mid-December, which, by the way, is a month away. But if the Jets keep losing these winnable games, Chargers, Raiders, and God knows what else, these Bills and Dolphins games are going to be quite challenging for obvious reasons, there will be nothing for Aaron Rodgers to come back to. There will be nothing for him to come back to if the Jets don't deliver and win games. So because of that relationship between Rodgers and Hackett, you can't do anything to Hackett. You're not going to change play callers. You're not going to change offensive coordinators. Like, he's the guy. So you're stuck with having him try to fix it. And I am seeking a spark. While there were sparks offensively, there continues to be the same trend of issues, whether it's penalties, turnovers, or what have you, that is stalling this offense. Robert Saleh keeps trotting it out as quote unquote self-inflicted wounds for the New York Jets. But how often after every game can you simply just point to that in a general sense and say, we're going to go back to the tape and try to fix this thing? Because I've heard enough of the excuses. I'm ready for results. This is a result-oriented business, and the Jets haven't scored an offensive touchdown in over 30 drives. 30-plus drives. It has not been since the Giants game, and in that one, Breece Hall had to do the spectacular and break a bunch of tackles against the Giants to score even that one. So this is a tough feeling because you don't normally get the opportunity heading into Week 11, which we will be officially on Tuesday. But you don't get the chance to reminisce and think about the season as it is. Because if you did or had that chance, the Jets beat the Buffalo Bills Week 1. The Jets beat the Philadelphia Eagles so far. That's the only loss that the Eagles have incurred so far this season is to the New York Jets, which is hard to believe based on everything that's happening right now. And when you look at the commonality in some of these crazy Jets wins, it requires like the supernatural. Bills, 4 turnovers. Eagles game, 4 turnovers. Like, the defense has to go to some crazy length. And by the way, the Jets had 2 turnovers in this game. Jordan Whitehead with the pick. It was the same play from the previous week against the Chargers that he dropped. Justin Herbert threw it in, and Jordan Whitehead jumped it and dropped it. This time he catches it. It's great. But they can't catch it in on a touchdown. At the end of the game, punch the ball out. Josh Jacobs, fumble Ruski. That, in theory, could have been the Jets' game-winning drive, but Zach Wilson throws the pick. The defense gave them turnovers on a silver platter, and they still couldn't do anything with it. Jets lose to the Raiders. Sunday Night Football. I've really enjoyed the Jets on primetime this year, outside of, obviously, this is a painful loss. The Chargers game's a blowout, but obviously the defense looked really good in that, too. But the Jets have stepped up on primetime. By the way, speaking of, there is a chance that the Jets get an additional primetime game. According to DJ Bieneme, who used to cover the Jets, he now covers the Houston Texans for ESPN. He said after speaking with a Texans PR staff member, the game that the NFL is thinking about flexing is the Jets-Texans game coming up in a couple weeks. So it could be an additional primetime game for the New York Jets. So keep an eye out for that. The Jets have been highly rated as it comes to these primetime games. So despite the way they may be playing, they may get the flex op. So keep an eye out for that. Again, everybody, the link is pinned to the top of our YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, you will see it very clear as day if you're in our comment section. Feel free to click the Cam 631 Laser hotline. It's a video link. You guys can click and join the show, react, vent, whatever you'd like. That is open for you guys. Again, that's brought to you by our friends over at Cam 631 Laser. He's a diehard Jets fan who has been a longtime consumer of the show, and he wanted to help support the show. And this is a cool way to do it. So if you can think it, he can make it. Challenge coins, knives, business cards, pens, license plate frames, car and motorcycle parts, keychain, bottle openers, coasters, you name it, you got it. You can email him at Cam, K-A-M, at 631laser.com. You can also call him at 631-31-LASER. Custom laser engraving. We're giving out a couple of gift packs this week of wonderful stuff that he sent in. So please support a wonderful sponsor and a fellow New York Jets fan. With the holidays coming up, it could be a cool way to support a cool sponsor and also get your friends and family some cool gifts. So again, custom laser engraving by Cam. Make sure you guys check that out. Couple of things here. So, yeah, there's the Aaron Rodgers good news. that he's planning a mid-December return, which seems crazy, but it's Aaron Rodgers, so anything's possible. Again, get rid of CJ Uzama. That's what I'd like to do. Italy Jet will be joining me in a handful of hours for Boy Green Daily Monday morning, which is technically like 5-ish hours away. He says, "Hey, my man, so much to digest with this game. You're not even kidding. Not even kidding." Xavier says, "My hope is gone for this team." I feel you, Xavier. My hope is not, because again, it's still 4-5, and technically everything is still in front of the New York Jets. But it's I could understand feelings being very low coming off that Sunday Night Football game. That's for sure. Kobe says so many killer penalties, all of them. The chop block that was called on Carter, the Lazard penalty, brutal. It's just like, again, frustrating. And that's on Saleh. It's on coaching, man. If your team is being undisciplined and getting penalties all over the place, it's on you as a coaching staff to crack the whip in practice and make sure that stuff gets handled. And obviously it hasn't. Again, 8 penalties, 8, 9, 9, 9, 7. Those are all the penalty amounts over the last 6 weeks. Unbelievable. Inexcusable. There's just no other way to put it. That is just undisciplined football, and that's on coaches. The lack of preparedness from an offensive standpoint. The Jets scored their first offensive points of the season on an opening drive today with a 3-pointer, a field goal. That's on coaching, not having their players ready for games. Scripted plays are what you practice. In practice, it depends on the offense, but most of them are 12 to 15 plays. Those are your bet. That's you script say this is going to work perfectly against this opponent. And 3 points is the first time the Jets have scored on an opening drive all season. We're not even talking about a touchdown. We're talking just scoring in any way. Terrible. Let's go to Furniture Guy. The worst part is no change will be made. Zach is our guy. So sick. Yeah, Zach actually, I will, color it fully here. Zach Wilson was having, quite frankly, outside of the pick and a couple of, some play calling scenarios, he was having one of his better games that he's had for the Jets. Now, you can look at the numbers and say, well, that doesn't say much. Perhaps. But he was running it. He was dealing a little bit. He missed a couple of throws. There's a couple he missed. There's no doubt about it. But he had a couple of perfect dimes that were just dropped. So Zach Wilson was really having it. But that's my point, Furniture Guy, is it's less about Zach, because Zach was fine. And I think he bought himself more time with this performance. But it's just the offense needs something. Something needs to change. Again, I keep referencing the definition of insanity. Insanity is literally trotting out and doing the same thing over and over again, saying magically it's just going to be fixed, because that's what Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, and Zach Wilson and all these people keep saying. They're like, we're close, we're close, we're close, we're close, and it's just going to pop eventually. Like eventually we're just not going to have the penalties that kill us. Eventually we're just not going to have the turnovers. Like eventually everything's just going to click. Again, based on what? We're 10 weeks into the season, and the Jets are totally inept offensively, not scoring touchdowns. And it's sick to me. And if I was a member of this offense, I would apologize to every member of that defense saying, you gave up only 1 touchdown and we still lost. That's on us as an offense. That's pathetic. That's embarrassing. And that would affect me to my core, to the defense. So, yeah, I don't think a change is coming, and that's the problem. I want some sort of change so we could say, okay, well, now let's see what happens. And Saleh was not asked directly whether or not he'd bend Zach Wilson moving forward, but based on his performance, I would doubt that significantly. And Diana Rossini, by the way, had a report that came out last night that the Jets will not bend Zach Wilson, quote unquote, barring a disaster, which you may say it was a disaster tonight, but it wasn't. I mean, he had the one horrible pick. He had a fumble as well. He held the ball too long, got strip sacked, but luckily the Jets fell on the ball. But yeah, so it hasn't been one of those Zach Wilson 4-5 interception games. That has not happened. Maybe that's what it would take for the Jets to seriously consider a quarterback change. They did not elevate Trevor Siemian, so the only 2 quarterbacks on the roster were Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle. And so that's worth noting as well. James Woody, who again joins us normally every Sunday on Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, says, quote, "The season is cooked. Shame on Joe Douglas for having no plan B and continuing to roll with plan Z despite having 10 weeks to do something." Yeah, people have pointed to Josh Dobbs, who once again looked wildly impressive against the Vikings. So that was a 6th-round pick. Or again, taking the veteran quarterback market a little bit more seriously as a backup. But not only, so the Jets have admitted in the past, that they probably should have gotten a legitimate veteran to compete with Zach when he was a rookie, and they did not. And they admitted that as a mistake. Well, the Jets this offseason, Aaron Rodgers was the guy, and then Zach Wilson was QB2, basically. He was in a quote-unquote competition with Tim Boyle, but that's not really a competition. Tim Boyle had a $75,000 signing bonus of guaranteed money. That's chump change. That's nothing. So the Jets didn't invest anything crazy in Tim Boyle. Hell, he was on the practice squad, then they ended up bringing him up after the Rodgers injury. So, like, they didn't do anything at quarter. Like Zach Wilson, so they said it was a mistake having Zach Wilson as a rookie with no competition. Yet they do it again as a backup. He had no legitimate competition for the backup role. Tim Boyle didn't push Zach Wilson. Like, let's be real. Let's be honest. That did not happen. So now the Jets, to your point, Woody, one Rodgers injury away, which happened. I don't play in the waters where people said, he was old. You should have known this was coming. No, the Achilles injury was a fluke injury. Unfortunately, the Jets are accustomed to those, I suppose. But I don't say, Rodgers got injured. Like, again, he had appeared in 81 of 82 games since 2018. So age was not a factor. He just got hurt. But the Jets were not prepared for that scenario. And to your point, Woody, this injury happened in week 1. We just finished up week 10 for the Jets. There's still Bills, Broncos tomorrow. And the Jets still refuse to do anything of note. They signed Trevor Siemian, but he's on the practice squad, and he's been a middle-of-the-road quarterback with no real success. Carson Wentz, on the other hand, again, not that I'm a big Carson Wentz guy, but this is a guy that is a former All-Pro in 2017. He's a second-team All-Pro in 2017, Pro Bowl in 2017. He was an MVP candidate in 2017, got injured late in the regular season. The Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl, but not on his back, on Nick Foles. And apparently his camp reached out to the Jets after the Chargers' embarrassing loss and said, hey, man, my services are still available. And the Jets, for a second time, rejected Carson Wentz and said, thanks, but no thanks. And ultimately, the Rams had the pressure on him saying, hey, we don't want to wait around anymore. If you want to sign here, now is the time, or maybe we're going to move in a different direction. So Carson, again, reached out to the Jets, him and his people. The Jets said, kick rocks, pal, not interested. And he's like, all right, I guess I'll sign with the Rams. And he signed for a little bit above the veteran minimum. It's like $1.165 million, plus he got like $150,000 signing bonus as a sprinkle on top. So we're talking about relative chump change. And to your point, Woody, the Jets didn't explore any of those waters seriously. Ian Rappaport said Carson Wentz was on their short list, but a short list they never truly considered. So it seems like it was all fluff from that perspective. So Joe Douglas, I would say there's been a lot of good with Joe Douglas, obviously. Sauce, Brees, Jermaine, Garrett, obviously. He's hit some dingers, as the kids say. He's hit some dingers, but he also has to have it as the black mark on the resume. The mess up initially with the draft, although, like, again, if you look at the draft, people, Mac Jones looks like garbage. Trevor Lawrence has even had his moments, but everyone probably still believes in him. Trey Lance, trash. Zach Wilson's been terrible. So you look at all these quarterbacks that have been taken in that draft, and they've all been bad. But on top of some of those issues, of the initial issues, again, GMs are going to have misses naturally, obviously. But on top of those, they reinvested in that mistake by making him the unquestioned QB2, which of course was always one injury away from stepping back in there. Sure, the Jets had a plan for him to not to see the field, but it didn't extend beyond the initial plan because, of course, you have to factor in the possibility anyone could get injured at any time. So that's an issue. Joey Harrison in here says, this is the worst I felt about a Jet season since Fitzy's second year, which was 2016. That year was terrible. I did not want him back, by the way. After the 3-interception fiasco in Buffalo to end the 2015 season, I was fine saying, all right, let's give the keys back to Geno and let's see what happens. But a contentious contract stalemate with him a free agent and him and the Jets going back and forth. It was a right before training camp signing, and it went horribly wrong, and the Jets imploded. But yeah, so I don't feel as bad as that. I have feelings of prisoner of the moment. Like this Raiders game hurts. This is so painful because, the Raiders are smoking cigars in their locker room. The Jets should have beat this team, man. They're better than this team. That's the part that's really frustrating for me, is that they're better than this team, and it doesn't matter that they're better because they still lost. They're better than the Patriots. They still lost. They're better than the Chargers. They still lost. Like, that's the part. If the Jets would have just gotten beat with a steel pipe and lose by 40, like, there's nothing you can say. But when you lose by 4 in this game, or even you lost by 3 scores in the Chargers game, but all those Zach Wilson turnovers, the fumbles, and everything else, it's just, God. So it's real tough right now. We'll be able to turn it around as we progress through the week, but right now it just doesn't feel good at all. Yeah, Kobe says Hackett's part of the problem. I agree, but again, with the Rodgers connection, I just don't know what you do. Let's see, Jason. I'm amazed at how easy it is for teams to floor our defense on 3rd and 4th and inches with a fake QB sneak. Yeah, they did the fake tush push jet sweep with the wide receiver or something. Well, tush push is the in vogue thing right now. So having plays off of that, I think that would have confused most defenses. But no, it's hard to nitpick the defense because, like I said, they gave it 1 touchdown the entire game, and they had been rock solid, sacks, couple of turnovers. Yeah, it's hard to nitpick anything with the defense to me. You can if you want. We could talk about that, but, Aiden O'Connell making a play in the red zone. Again, Jordan Whitehead getting mossed. Like, Devontae Adams, I thought they had a pretty good plan for, although they moved him around a lot. It's hard for me to blame the defense. Woody says, bluntly, Rodgers is not coming back to a 5-9 team. Of course he wouldn't. So again, the only way that Rodgers comes back is if the Jets are still alive, which precipitates a Bills sweeping, Dolphins win at home on a short week. It won't be easy. The Jets already beat the Bills once, but that means they're going to be even more on the Jets or Bills' radar rather for that. So it's man, they had opportunities in this one. Shem says Rodgers not coming back. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, the worst offense in the NFL. You could make that argument. That's for sure. Joseph says people who thought the Jets was going to the playoffs without Rodgers believes in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. I do believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but the thing is that this team was so well built around it that I'm going to be honest. I bought a little bit of the Kool-Aid on, Rodgers' ability to teach and mentor Zach Wilson and what that could do with this team. And obviously those things have fallen flat. So I'm an optimist for people who love that or hate that. I'm a glass half full guy. That's how I look at my life. That's how I approach the Jets. And I understand that's a minority opinion. But I've always said this. This is the PSA. I tell kids that I go to colleges and speak every once in a while. You don't get to control the cards you're dealt in life. We're all dealt different cards, whether it's a disability or, issues or obstacles or what have you. But you can control how you respond to the cards that you're dealt. And so I always try to have a positive disposition, an optimistic outlook, because I feel like that energy can be infectious when people are going through stuff. So I try to have that as a glass half full guy. So I thought there was a possibility, but it's still possible. The Jets are 4-5. They're in a tough spot, but now you got to look at the division, which is what I was probably already looking at anyway. Patriots lose their 2-8. They're out of it. Dolphins had the bye week. They're on top of the division. Then you have the Bills who play the Broncos tomorrow night. Let's see. The Bills have not looked good all year, so we'll see how they perform, and then they'll have a short week against the Jets. So that's a mini benefit to the New York Jets. And Jets will hit the road in Buffalo. That'll be That'll be challenging. That'll be a raucous atmosphere, to say the least. Greg calls the Jets the worst offense in the NFL. I can't stop you from saying that. When you're not scoring touchdowns, then you have every right to feel that way. Jason says the team sucks. Yeah, that's yeah. They certainly do. Certain aspects do. This offense does. Tony says, I think it's the O-line, to be honest. We fix that, we'll be okay. Let's see what the numbers were. Zach Wilson was only sacked twice, to be honest. So he was actually pretty good, and anytime there's real pressure, he escaped the pocket. So I did not think the offensive line was much of an issue tonight from that perspective. I thought the play calling was just bad. In obvious Breece Hall running situations, the Jets ran the ball. It was just very bizarre. So Breece didn't have a lot of, pathways, which was odd. So I think if you're talking from prognosing a long-term view, sure, we'll see. Mekhi Becton's a free agent after the season. Dwayne Brown's a free agent after the season. Connor McGovern's a free agent after the season. So there could be some AVT's coming off a serious injury, obviously. So there's a lot to be figured out. So TBD. Penalties killed the offense. Of course it did. And it has for the last 6 weeks. Brutal. Hemi says, I'm just wondering how long this frustration will continue if they keep making mistakes like this at every game. Yeah, it feels like a repetitive wash, rinse, repeat cycle. Garrett Wilson said he's sick and tired of it, all the losing and the terrible offense and everything. So I respect him sharing his opinion. He's in that offensive room. He is more invested than any of us. So he has every right to be. But we'll see if it bubbles over, because normally in a situation like this, there is a divide, what I just said. The Raiders only scored one offensive touchdown, or one touchdown in general, and the Jets lost. If I'm the defense, that eventually is going to eat away at me. That's going to say, hey, I'm doing my job like offense, do yours. We're asking for the bare minimum here, the bottom of the barrel, and it doesn't seem to matter. So that would eventually get to me. We'll see. That's on coaching. We'll see if Saleh can hold the locker room together. He was able to do it last year under some similar terrible circumstances. Greg, we have the worst luck in all sports. Yeah. Whether it's injuries, the penalties, yeah, it seems like the Jets are snake bitten in a lot of respects. That's fair. A couple more here, then we'll wrap up. Jason, you are crazy, Boy Green, if you don't think we're going 4-13. Yeah, to go on a whatever that would be. We're on a 2-game losing streak right now. What are we, 4-5? So that's another 8. Yeah, a 10-game losing streak. That would be grounds for firing. I would imagine there'd be some heads rolling if that were to happen. But there's a lot of quote unquote winnable games left on the schedule against teams that also struggle. Falcons struggle to score points. They have a backup quarterback situation. The Texans, obviously, C.J. Stroud, give him his flowers, but he's a rookie and he can make mistakes. You saw what the Jets defense did with another rookie in Aiden O'Connell. C.J. Stroud, a lot more talented, though. You've already beaten the Bills, so let's see. You haven't played the Dolphins yet. You have them twice. You have the Patriots, who looked god-awful. What was that, 10-6 in Germany? So although they have your number. So to me, I don't see 4-13 happening. I do not see the epic collapse of that nature. But obviously, I understand. We were just on a 3-game winning streak a couple weeks ago. Now we're on a 2-game losing streak. Times are dark right now for Jet fans. Understandably so after that horrid performance. So much positivity in that game, but again, too many mistakes. Not scoring touchdowns, penalties. CG Uzama, again, get rid of that guy. Like the leadership, he had that one snap where he caught a ball and then he got hit and then he fought through and got like 8 yards. That was cool, but not worth the penalties. Sergeant Mike, we need out-of-the-box thinking. Cut Zerline and just go for it on 4th down. Field goals are an illusion. I would not cut Z. Z has been so reliable. I saw Sunday Night Football have that stat, like over 45% of the Jets' points this year are field goals, which is not surprising if you're a Jets fan, but that was an interesting stat. And field goals are an illusion. Like, hey, the Jets have won plenty of games with their field goal kicker this year. Hell, all of their games, considering the amount of offense it's in. But I would like to see some more aggressiveness consistently throughout a game, Sergeant Mike. Paul Christensen, I could see our defensive players wanting to leave next season. I can't because Aaron Rodgers is coming back next year, and they would all be like, okay, can't wait for A-Rod to be back. So I don't see that happening. I do not see that happening. And congratulations, John, who screams Raider Nation at the top of his lungs. Deservedly so. There you guys go. Antonio Pierce has changed your guys' culture and your vibe and everything. So congratulations to the Las Vegas Raiders and your victory. Cheers to wherever your season goes from here. I thought for sure that after the emotional expenditure of the Giants game that the Raiders would fall flat. They sort of did at the beginning of the game. The Jets seemed to kind of get on top of them, but their inability to score touchdowns allowed the game to continue to stay close until you guys figured out your crap. So congratulations. Sergeant Mike, regardless of tonight's outcome, we needed to beat the Bills and Dolphins coming up in order to get to the playoffs. I would disagree with that slightly, and that's just for divisional sake. Because if the Jets, again, let me back it up. The Chargers and Raiders games were wild card-ish kind of opportunities, and just in general winning games. So if you win those, then we're talking about a different path. The Bills and Dolphins, I don't know if you had to beat them both to get to the playoffs. But I always wanted the Jets to split with everybody. In a perfect world, sweep New England. Obviously, that can't happen. But split with everybody, that would be progress based on what the Jets have done previously. So we will see. Again, it's hard coming off this 2-game losing streak. But if I were the Jets and I'm heading into this Bills game, I would have a little level of swag saying it's gravy. We already split with Buffalo. They're the ones that has all the pressure on them. There's no pressure on the Jets because they're not expected to do anything. So that would be a mentality I would embrace. Jason, we're cursed, Boy Green. Zach just can't. Is not a good quarterback. I called that interception Zach threw. Yeah, I was a little afraid because, we're getting close and Zach hadn't thrown an interception in a long time, but yeah, that was a bad pick. Bad pick. Good play by the kid, but the man, he's an adult, but good play from him. But Zach Wilson, bad throw, man. Telegraphed. It looked like he was staring him down the entire time. Tough. Greg, the only thing that's going to keep players want to stay here is Rodgers coming back, which, by the way, he confirmed he will, and also gave the tease of a mid-December return. We will indeed see if that happens. That is TBD on that front. Well, before we get out of here, even though no one joined the call line, and I'm not surprised, it's 2 a.m. and the Jets lost, but I do want to give a shout out to Cam 631 Laser Hotline for supporting this post-game show and that call-in line. So I'm not surprised, like I said, that no one joined this one. We've had several people join on some of the fun wins, so hopefully we can get back to that after the Bills game, which would be fun, and also be a more reasonable time. That game kicks off at 4:25. But nonetheless, another shout-out to Cam 631 Laser sponsoring Boy Green, these cool business cards, which, by the way, will be included in all the little gift packages we send out as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in for this late episode, late at night, early in the morning. We'll be back in a couple of hours for Boy Green Daily with Italy Jet. Very much looking forward to it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next tomorrow morning in a couple hours. Take care.